Today we're going to talk about substance and supply. Substance and supply in your relationships, substance and supply in your health, substance and supply in your creativity and what you do in your world, substance and supply in your financial security. This applies to all of that because the world operates on the law of supply, not just on an economic side, not on a financial side, but every part of our being, every part of our relationships, every part of our life is always about the law of supply. So here we go. This is something, you're never satisfied. Have you ever heard that? Yeah, where's my mom? Mom. So my mom, poor mother, really seriously, my poor mom, she would get home from work, she'd be tired, and I'd make her go to the airport or do something crazy, and on my way home, I was planning the next thing. I was always planning the next thing, and she's like, are you ever going to be satisfied? And the answer is no. No, I was never satisfied. I was grateful. And I didn't know how to articulate that because people, when they say you're never satisfied, it makes it sound like you're not grateful, but I'm never satisfied. I'm never satisfied because the law of supply says this: the law of being is perpetual increase, progress, and growth. When one good is realized, another desire for greater good will develop. And when a higher state is reached, another more and glorious state will unfold, and so on, and so on, and so on. So my divine discontent that I've always had is perfectly in alignment with this law of being. That there's always something greater to create, more vistas to see over, more expansive ideas to create in my life and experience. It's never about being mundane and simple and being done. Because I'm never satisfied. Now that's hard because it feels like I'm always thirsty for something else. But that's the natural divine urge of life to get bigger. Not stay stagnant, not stay static or contract, but to expand itself. And once you get to that place, I expect to keep going and going and going. It's always about improving and expanding and using this law of being. Track anything in the universe where it started. It didn't start from creature, it started from a creator. We've all been created in its image and likeness. Everything comes from something else. Everything is imagined and put into place twice. First through the initial response, or through our initial, we pick this up through the infinite, and then we create it. It's not creature created, it's creator created. And when we understand that that's our spiritual heredity, that's our spiritual dynamic, then everything we do comes from that infinite intelligence. Next thing, there are those who don't see abundance around them. They are either not using nor are they understanding the law of supply. There are people who don't see abundance around them. They just see their circumstance and what may not be the happiest of times in a certain area of their life. But they're missing the bigger picture. We talked about that a lot last week. We're missing the whole piece of the whole pie, not just the slice. Because there are people that don't see the abundance around them. What you don't see will always be taken away. So recognize that there's something to be grateful for. God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. Say that for me, please. God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. Notice it doesn't say God is my delayed, sporadic, scarce supply. It doesn't say that, does it? Why? Because that wouldn't make any sense. It doesn't make any logical sense. But God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. That's an affirmation that my dad used to say to us all the time. In fact, every prayer before a meal, I think he would actually say that. God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply, of which we give thanks. Amen. That was the grace he would say before we would pray at any meal. But God is my instant. Do you believe that God is your instant, constant, and abundant supply? If so, you can move with a great deal of faith that no matter what's going on in your world, you are in your right place doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. Yes? Say it again. God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. If you walk away with anything, I want you to remember that. Because as you progress and go off on this, you're 16. 16. I'm not bitter. 16, really. All that talent at 16. But as you progress in your life, just remember that that is always backing you. People may come and go. Labels may come and go. People in your life come and go. But one thing you can count on, that God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. Next thing. I'm having a hard time here, William. In economics, we have the law of supply and demand. In metaphysics, we have a law of demand and supply. It's a 180 of the economic model that we were brought up on. The economic model in which we all have a paradigm, we all have a belief system, and the law of supply and then demand. In metaphysics, we have to turn that around because in our own life, whatever we make a demand on from the universe, the law then supplies it. If you believe that if you have faith in God, then you know whatever I put my demand into the universe, the law is going to fill that in. If I have a demand about a relationship, I better be very clear what I want because the law is going to fill that in. If I have demand about my health, the law will fill it in. I don't have to wait for health to show up to be healthy. I have to put it into the universe so the law can supply it. I have to be it in my consciousness first for me to attract it into my experience. And then the universe will conspire to create whatever it is that I'm asking for. Whatever it is my heart's desire, the universe will supply that. So don't go off the law of supply and demand because then you can have the idea of scarcity or lack. There can be fear around that. You can't have that if you have the law of demand and supply because you know the infinite never runs dry. God never runs out. Does that make sense? Our life doesn't consist in the abundance of things we possess, but in the consciousness of that which we have. We possess the whole world and all its abilities, yet we are only able to enjoy what our consciousness will discern. So let me unpack that for just a minute. Our life doesn't consist of abundance of the things that we have. It's a consciousness, and maybe I would just say this, it's a consciousness of gratitude for all that we have. When one has that consciousnness of gratitude, then things flow easily in and out of our life. When you try to hold something too tight, it will fall out. I always use this example. If you want to have the sand, grains of sand, I can scoop up and hold grains of sand like this, and I can hold it for a really, really long time. The second I start to feel scarcity and fear, I start putting my hands together. What happens to all the sand? It goes out on both sides. Next thing you know, I'm just left with a few grains of sand in my hand. When I had this infinite supply, as soon as I started doing this and constricting it, it went away. So that's a consciousness. This is a consciousness, and this is a consciousness. And actually, this looks like this. There's an irony to that. There's some sort of an irony because we're fighting all the time. This is a fight. This is, bring it on. Bring it on. Do you follow me? All right. We possess the whole world and all its possibilities, yet we are only able to enjoy that which our consciousness will discern. In other words, whatever I'm able to see myself doing, that is my limit. If I can't see it in my own mind, in other words, I can't even imagine it, then how can it ever come into being? So my limit is whatever I place in my vision as the limit. Are you with me? Okay, we're going to keep going. You guys are with it. All right. Have you ever noticed that people never ask you what the secret of your failures are? How did you get so screwed up? How did you do that? I want to know every detail. People don't ask you about your failures. They don't want because successes and failures are not secrets, they're systems. They're systems. I was talking to Michaela when she first came in this morning, and there's a point where she didn't make it into the top 10. And I said, how did you feel about that? And she's like, yay. She actually said, I'm okay with that. I'm like, really? Because part of me would be like, I'd be like disappointed. No, because there's more option and opportunities. For me to have been exposed like this and have that kind of exposure on the national, international, in the whole world, 13 million views, thank you very much, to have that kind of exposure, then now she's up to, no one else is directing her but her now. Her destiny is now driven from that, not driven from being in the top 10 and having all these rules and things she has to follow. She now has much more freedom to pursue her dream without that. So she got what she needed from the experience. Now, some may say, oh, I'm sorry, and view it as a failure, but no, that's actually success. That's a huge step to success. And if you can look at that and embody that, so if we can look at the things we failed at and call them, I like to call them successful failures. I did really well, and I bombed, and it's great. Because I'm learning from it, and it makes me move into other things. You know? I mean, who here is perfect? Really? Let me ask your wife, or let me ask Nancy if yeah, let me ask her how she feels about your perfection. Yeah. I noticed my husband's hand didn't go up either, so that's good. But people don't ask you about, they want to know the secret to your success. But the actual question is, my successes and my failures all add up to the success of who I am. And they add up to the success of who you are. So stop looking at them as failures and look at them as, hey, this was a great stepstone into whatever's next. Exhale on that, yeah. I dare you to see things differently. I dare you. And here's the acronym. Ready? DARE. Deconstruct, align, reframe, and evolve. So I have to deconstruct my old way of thinking, my old way of looking at failures, my own way of looking at things in my life that didn't work out the way I wanted them to. I have to dare to think differently. So let's walk through it. Deconstruct, the first one. Deconstruct the wall that you've created around your success. Deconstruct the wall that you've created around success, because sometimes when we're successful, we create a wall, but the problem with a wall is that nothing else can come in. Greater good can't flow if you just create the wall. So no matter how successful you are, you have to break down the walls and know that you're in a flow of something so that it can continue to flow. But the second you start creating a wall around it, you create the limit for it to ever express by means of you. Okay? Dr. Holmes said this, and it's a harsh thing to hear. But you don't look at it on a personal level, look at it on different levels. Are you willing to let go? Are you now going to carry this corpse around with you? Are you now going to carry that failure or whatever it is? Are you going to carry that baggage with you? Are you ready to release it? Because if you're ready to release it, you don't have to carry it anymore. Because if once you release it, it makes room for something else to come in. When you carry all that baggage, you can have a really sore back, right? You get tired, you're like, oh my God, and nothing else can come in. I have to take that off my back. I have to release it so it creates space for something else to come in. Everyone can carry around their baggage. It gets heavy. And then as the older you get, the more baggage we surface. Oy! It's exhausting. But it doesn't have to be if I can look at it through the eyes of success and failure as stepstones to success, and I can look at these as a paradigm shift, and I have to realign all of this stuff so that I can actually call upon the universe to create it. So how long do you want to hang on to it? How long do you want to hang on to it? How long do you want to hang on to that argument that you've had with someone? Ooh, that's a good one. How long are you going to hang on to it? Because remember, you can't move on till you let it go. You can think you can, but as long as you're carrying it with you, it's still part of you. A, align yourself with spirit. What God does for others, God now does for me and more. What God does for others, God now does for me and more. Say that, please. What God does for others, God now does for me and more. Can you believe that? If so, then you're using the law of supply. If you say to yourself, yeah, but, as soon as you put the but in front of it, yeah, but, you just went ahead to an old paradigm. Get rid of your but. Hey, this should be a good talk. Get rid of your but. Because yeah, but, no, but, as soon as you hear the but, gone. You've deconstructed your perfection. You deconstructed what you're journeying into. Does that make sense? With grace and ease, the walls of lack and delay now crumble away, and I enter into my promised land. This is not the promised land of an afterlife. It's the promised land because the kingdom of heaven is here and now. It's not something we work toward. Many of us have been in the kingdom of hell for long enough, so we move into the kingdom of heaven here and now. The promised land is exactly what we're living in right now. I remember my grandmother telling me, don't wait for your golden years to live, honey. You are in your golden years. Yeah, and I was 30. So I've been living, having a good time, showing God a good time, but don't wait Don't wait, because you know what? With grace and ease, the walls of lack and delay now crumble away, and I enter into that land. Because whatever God does for other people, it's waiting to do by means of me. Now, there's a question mark there. Yes, that's true. The question is, am I willing to do the work that goes with that? See, I can have a big vision. I have big visions. Oh, I want to do this, and I want to do that. But the question then boils down, okay, God's going to say, absolutely. I'm going to give you this, give it to you abundantly, but you're going to have to work. And then I go, well, that's not what I want. I don't want to have to work for it. I just want to have it. I'm not willing to do the work to do it. Come on, God, deliver it FedEx. It needs to just come to my door. So it's whatever you're willing to co-create. We're co-creators of this life experience. Remember, at the very beginning, it's not creature, it's creator. Creator creates by means of us, but it has to create by means of us, which means I have to do something too. Now, if I'm willing to do it, then let's go. Journey's on. Hit the ride, let's go. But if I'm not, then I have to stop telling the universe this is what I want, because it's not really what I want. It's never going to happen because I'm not willing to do the work to do it. I say this all the time. You've heard me. If you want to have a great body, you can't just drive by the gym. You know? I know people that sign up for gym membership and they think, oh, that's not going to work. You have to do the work. So are you willing to do the work? If not, then be cognizant of that and say, this is what I'm willing to do and willing to have in my life, and I'm willing to work that way to get that. You know? It's not handed to us on a silver platter. You do have to do something. You have to co-create with that universe. So just remember that. Next thing, reframe. Reframe where you are in the totality of an experience. Ralph Waldo Emerson's brilliant when he says this. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. That's brilliant. That's the reframing. The reframing is no need to look in the rearview mirror, right? And no need to actually look too far forward, because whatever's going to happen from here is going to happen from here now. So I have to have that here in order for that to happen out here. If I don't have it here, it's not going to happen out here. Whatever you have in your here is what you're looking at now, and if you don't like what you're looking at, then you have to fix this first before that's going to change. The law of demand and supply. We keep saying to ourselves, I'll be happy when. No. Here, the next one. I just went ahead of myself. That line's coming up. Evolve into something greater. How far you go in life. Here you go. If you want to evolve, you know, we talk about building a world that works for everyone. We're changing lives one heart at a time. How far you go in life depends on how tender you are with the young, how compassionate you are with people getting older, how sympathetic you are with people striving, and how tolerant of the weak and the strong. No more needs to be said about that. If we want to evolve, it's how we treat everybody and everything around us. That's why we sang that song, you know, we are a family. You are a part of me. You know, that sometimes I don't like parts of me. Okay? But I have to remember, whatever is in here is going to be created out there. So I have to be tender with myself and other people, compassionate, looking at people that are struggling. Maybe I have to change my paradigm around watching people struggle and how I view them and how I label them and have a perception about them that may or may not even be their truth. But in the absence of the truth, your mind makes up a storyline about every person that you run into. Remember that. And it may not be the slightest bit accurate. Chances are it's not, because we never know till we talk to someone about what their journey is. But I can tell you what, we have to be tolerant of people who are weak and tolerant of people who come across very strong. Kext thing, when things change, I will be happy. No, when I'm happy, things will change. People keep going, well, when this happens, I'll be happy. You just set your happiness way out in the future. That's not it. When I'm happy, things will then unfold for me to be happy. When I have that mindset, that consciousness, that mindset of happiness, happiness will then be coming toward me and I'll experience it. If all I talk about is what I don't want, then all I'm continue to bring about are the things that I never wanted to experience in the first place. But don't say, when things change, I'll be happy. You better find that happiness in the moment now. And say, okay, you know what? It may not be, Dr. Tom, I think, used to say, I may not be all that I used to think. Thank God I'm not all that I want to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be. Right? But thank God I'm not what I used to be. So it's about when I'm happy, things will begin to change. I have to shift myself. And I need to hear this. Because I can get wrapped up in things and drama and all that other stuff, and it just, I can get angry and upset. And what good, is that going to create happiness in my life? No, it just creates more drama on the next day, or the next hour, or the next 15 minutes. But in humanity, sometimes we mess it up. But part of our success is to look at the things when we fell off and fall off and be able to get back on in the right way. Does that make sense? All right. Worry is a spiritual constrictor. It slows and can even stop your good from flowing. Let's just picture a giant hose, right? A giant hose, and the universe is just, hey, here's all the good, Joe, all the good. And what worry does is it takes all that good and it just puts it into a little bitty garden hose. So all that was possible is rushing, and now it's really constricted. And then some of us take that garden hose and we put a kink in it over our head. So it can't flow at all because we're so worried it can't flow. So worry is a spiritual constrictor. It stops you from actually being in the flow of all that we were destined to experience. What do they say? If you worry, pray. If you pray, don't worry. Right? Simply put, when you are wanting something, it already exists in the sphere of causes. Stop there. When we want something, we live in a cause and effect relationship, right? When we desire something, it already exists in the universe as a cause. Let's say I desire light, right? Light, let's just call it light. There is all the components to make a candle, the wax and the wick. It's always there. Whatever you asked for, it's always there. When you desire a particular effect in your life, the desire is an appearance of an underlying cause. So I have this desire, the underlying cause is light, and then all the components necessary for me to create that light are always there. Now, whether that's create a career, create health, create relationships, create financial security, abundance, when I put my demand into the universe, all the components exist. Can you imagine having a breakfast with God and you saying, God, I put this demand in the universe, but this may be too big for you. You may not have an idea. Nah, you're not quite there yet. You don't have all it takes. This is way too big for you. Can you imagine having that conversation with the infinite saying that you're not infinite, you're finite? No, it doesn't make sense. All right? That cause is a demand upon the universe which has inexhaustible supply available to us. Inexhaustible supply. Last thing. It says in Scripture, very simple, the law of supply, right? Supply and substance. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and you'll find it. Knock, and the door's going to open. Ask, and you'll ask, and you'll be given it. Demand, supply. Seek, you're going to find. Knock, the door opens. It's pretty simple. Goes right in line with God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. Doesn't it? God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. Hold on to that. Instant, constant, abundant supply. Sign me up. Sign me up. And so ends your lesson. Thank you, everybody.